You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back!
Not gonna lie, I totally forgot all about the intro. You cleared your throat, and then you started on that. I was like, oh, yeah, that's a thing we do.
Yeah, we did start, technically. I know, because we sit here and chit-chat and catch up. Oops. Well, Jarrett can just make a judgment call on how much of that he wants to keep.
He can probably edit out all that baby talk. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about my kid.
Everyone cares about your kid. He's so cute.
He is cute. I'm just saying nobody really cares to hear about it.
I do.
That's why I'm telling you.
Well, we hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving if you celebrate that. And I do have one announcement, which is a bit belated because we got the notification after we recorded. But apparently Josh, our patron and listener, his girlfriend's birthday fell on Thanksgiving this year.
Oh.
So happy birthday, Josh's girlfriend.
Oh, we didn't get her name?
I didn't get her name. Sorry.
Lame.
I know. I should have investigated further, but I think I was at work when I got that message, and I just wrote back and said, oh my gosh, that's so great. We'll give her a shout out. And I should have said, what's her name?
A half-assed shout out.
I know. I'm sorry.
We gotta do this again.
I'm sorry. Josh, what's your girlfriend's name?
Tell her to tune in next week when we actually give her a direct shout out.
Birthday week continues.
Sarah,
anyways.
Megan, Kelly.
Megan Kelly.
Oh, yeah, no. I said Sarah and then Megan.
Rachel. Jezebel.
Elizabeth.
Mackenzie.
Olivia.
Martha.
Margaret.
Candace.
Reagan.
Oh. Hillary.
Poppy.
Oh! Man. You had that one on the tip of your tongue.
I'm just naming book characters I've read recently.
Dorothy.
You were reading the Wizard of Oz?
No, now I'm playing word association. Josh, please let us know if we got any of those correct.
We are probably so far off base.
It would be amazing if we were right, though. If his girlfriend's name is Poppy, first of all,
adorable.
A great name, I know. But whatever name she has, I'm sure is lovely. That's the only announcement that I have. Is I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and happy belated birthday to Josh's girlfriend, whose name we will find out and then announce if she wants us to next week.
Wouldn't it be great if she's like, I'm going to tell you my name, but you can't say it.
I know.
And so next week we'll be like, happy birthday to Josh's girlfriend.
Name redacted. Oh, man. Well, I have an episode for you.
Excellent. I'm glad I'm not here under false pretenses. Though you've already poured the wine, so I'm good.
I have. And I honestly, if I had more time / if I had planned better, which...
Well, we are just coming off of a holiday where you were hosting out-of-town guests.
This is true. And we're, full disclosure, drinking the wine that Katy...
bribe wine.
Gave me as payment for watching her cat this week.
And not killing the fish.
And not killing the fish, which I low-key thought I might have done. Also, now seems like a good time to tell you, I did water every plant in your house.
Thank you.
Your directions were confusing because
there were Sheltons because I had typed up and then the printer at work was like, no. And I was like, but please? It's just a little bit. And it's like, no, ink depleted. I'm like, that's a bit dramatic.
The directions made it seem like I should only be watering, like, 2 plants.
We have 2 plants of concern. Several other are cactus.
Okay. Well, one, you said hanging ivy.
Mm-hmm. It's actually a golden pothos.
Okay, well, so I looked around your kitchen and I was like, there is a hanging plant. It's not an ivy, to my knowledge. I will water it, but I'm also going to water all these other plants that are sitting around it, just in case. And then you said, in the living room, the olive tree. And I went into your living room and I looked around and I said, there is not a single plant in here.
My husband's an idiot.
But then I went into your dining room and I said, that looks like an olive tree. I'm going to give that some water.
Yes. His name is Zeus, by the way.
Oh, great. Good to know.
And he was probably thirsty, so thank you.
Well, I gave him a little extra water. But I told Mira all of these things. She heard all of my, I was like, your mom was confused when she wrote this.
That was Shelton. The fact that you could read the handwriting is evidence that it was Shelton.
Oh.
So mine is Chicken Scratch.
Oh,
That's why he's going to have to address all of our holiday cards.
Well, tell him to get his room's names straight, because there's not an olive tree in your living room.
I'm going to go make him reread over his instructions for you.
I did think for a minute, I was like, do they call the dining room the living room?
We do almost no living in that room.
I was confused for a bit. I was like, maybe they call this the den, and then they call the dining room the living room because we hang out in here a lot? I don't know. Anyway, I thought if I had been planning more, I was going to go out and get us a bottle of 19 Crimes wine. Ooh. Because it is thematic to this episode, which you will find out later. But first, I will tell you a little bit of history. Okay, so our episode takes place in the early 19th century in Edinburgh, Scotland. Which, do you know how to spell Edinburgh? Do you know what the word looks like? It looks like Edinburgh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I double checked the pronunciation because I was like...
We actually have a big picture of Edinburgh in the hallway upstairs.
Oh.
Shelton did study abroad there for 6 weeks in pharmacy school.
Oh, I didn't know they had a pharmacy school there.
And apparently one of the questions that he got from his friends there is, do you guys really drink out of those red plastic cups like in the movies? And they were apparently fascinated with Solo cups.
Nice.
And so so when he got back to the States, he sent them a package of Solo cups and also that Firefly tea whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think it had come out around then, and he had told them about it, and they were like, that's just blasphemy. Like, I can't even fathom what this is.
No, man, mix that shit with some lemonade. You're golden.
Yes. Summertime.
Yep.
So he sent that to them too, and it blew their minds.
Nice.
But segue, one of Critter's favorite toys of the week was also a Solo cup.
Nice. Good to know.
We'd carry him around and he'd be like holding it and chewing on it, and I'm like, he's practicing for his frat boy days.
Exactly. Fair enough. Well, my parents went to, I think they went to Edinburgh. They went to Scotland some time ago for one of their anniversaries. 25 years.
That's where Shelton and I were planning on going. We'd already started doing our travel planning for 2020.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oops.
Instead, we bought land.
That makes more sense.
Well, actually, technically, we are landowners in Scotland.
That's right. I have seen your thing.
Yep. So I'm a lady and he's a lord. Or laird.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but, well, you probably do. Because it's not just in Edinburgh. But Edinburgh was one of the leading European centers for anatomical studies, specifically in the 19th century. And
are we talking about the early days of anatomy classes and grave robbing?
Yes,
nice.
We are. And so dissections and surgeries were attended by the public and by medical students. And because I'm an art history nerd and because my certificate that I received from my college, sorry, my award, not my certificate.
That's right.
My major award that I received that is framed on my wall is in art history. I have, of course, had to look up some great artwork. This one's a little bit ahead of the time, but it's by Rembrandt. So I had to include it. So this is Rembrandt's...
I've seen this one.
The Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Nicholas Tulp, which was painted in 1632. It's probably one of the most famous paintings of
I just love the
dead guy being dissected.
Yeah, the dead dude is hilarious.
Yeah.
And then also the guy in the
background.
Funny meme. He's like, oh shit, is this going to be on the final?
I know. Or he's like getting caught being painted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think he's like specifically showing them the arm.
Yep.
He's like, this is how the arm tendons work.
Yeah, it looks like tendons.
As if he has a clue how arm tendons work. It's 1632, Dr. Tulp. So, a little bit more modern, or more like contemporary to our story. In 1875, Thomas Eakins painted The Gross Clinic, which I think is a funny name, which depicts a surgery, not a dissection, which I'll show you in a second, a later picture, but this one is kind of characterized by like, it's pretty dark, but you can see like the theater of students who are taking notes and like viewing this whole thing. And you can also see the guy who's like holding the cloth of like probably chloroform over the patient's face.
I also like the guy in the back who's like casually leaning on his arm, kind of like,
Yep. That actually might be the artist. I'm not sure. There's a self-portrait of the artist in one of these. And then in 1889, Thomas Eakins painted the Agnew Clinic, which is a brighter, more modern version. Also of a surgery, not of a dissection. But I had to include all of these. But again, it just shows you this is how surgeries were performed in giant theaters with...
Also in... You know, just a woman's breasts on display, too.
You know, just, I mean, as they were. Hello.
He heard us talking about women's breasts, and he was like, aha, I know what the situation needs. A corndle.
A corndle.
Corndle, very prophylactic.
Prophylactic. Phallic is the word you're looking for, sir.
Prophylactic. He got the
put a prophylactic on it.
He got the phallic part right. Oh, man. Okay. So, pretend that those were dissections instead of surgeries. So, to do a dissection, which would have imagined the same thing except a dead person, not a live person, one needed a fairly reliable supply of preferably fresh cadavers. And at the time, the only legal cadavers to use for dissections were either executed prisoners, suicide victims, or deceased orphans, aka wards of the state. And towards the end of the 18th century, there were fewer criminals being executed because, this is where I would bring out the 19 crimes, Britain learned that they could just ship their criminals off to Australia. And then I'd be like, as our 19 crimes wine shows. So just pretend that the horse on our
14
wine.
hands is
14
actually 19 crimes.
14 hands doing crimes got sent to Australia. Moral of the story, in Scotland, they're like, hey, we don't have as many executed prisoners to use for dissections. So this led to like a shortage of, quote, usable bodies that anatomists and doctors could use for their studies. So where there is a demand, a market booms. And medical students and doctors would often pay men who became known as resurrection men or resurrectionists to provide them with fresh bodies. And resurrectionists would simply find fresh graves and dig up recently buried people and then sell them to students or doctors. And shockingly, this was a relatively low-risk crime because taking a body from a grave was only a misdemeanor. However, taking items from a body was a felony. So if you're a resurrectionist, you would like strip the body of its valuables, leave those behind. And then also police didn't really put a ton of effort into stopping them because they understood that in order for doctors to like become better at surgery, they had to practice.
Imagine that. They recognized common sense above the letter of the law.
And they were probably like, I'm sure they knew someone who was like, I had to have, or, you know, like my cousin had to have his appendix taken out and died, or like I had a kidney stone and I died. Or, you know, like...
They knew someone who was impacted by, you know, the medical care. Like, oh, thankfully, or, you know, the positive things where they had a kidney stone and didn't die, or they had their appendix removed and didn't die because the doctor was able to, you know, properly study anatomy.
Yeah.
And, you know, without bringing too much of political stuff in. Like, that's still a thing that's today. Like, it's easy for us to look back and be like, well, obvious that makes common sense. Like, how could anyone be opposed to that? Because I think people weren't even technically allowed to willingly donate their body to science at the time.
Yeah.
It was just, like, against the law. Like, there was a time when they had anatomy classes at night in secret because it was illegal to do this.
Yeah.
And so, like, we look back on it and we're like, well, obviously you need to, you know, have the cadavers. You know, we still do this in medical school.
Yeah.
Why would anyone be opposed to that? And it's like, well, we have certain hot topics today that are, you know, hopefully in a few years people will look back and be like, wow, why was this criminalized?
Yeah.
When obviously it provides such a benefit.
Yeah. I mean, there are still people who, I mean, you do have to, like, give consent to have your organs donated. And there are people who don't want their organs donated after they're dead.
Fine.
And that is fine.
There's people who don't believe in medical care of any kind. Which is
but also, when you're dead, you're dead. And your body after you're dead can help other people, believe it or not. And I don't know. I don't want to get on on a rant, but your body can't. I mean, when your body
isn't using it anymore.
Yeah, when you're not using your body anymore, yes, it does have sentimental meaning to your loved ones, probably. But again, you ain't using the squishy parts inside of you, at least.
I think I've actually read this somewhere that medical students, after they've finished with their cadavers, they have like a ceremony thing that they'll invite the cadaver's loved ones to.
Aww.
And they talk like, oh, you know, we had Joe. And, you know, I specifically remember one day when we were, you know, I was really struggling with arteries. And thankfully Joe had these really great veins and arteries. And, you know, I was really able to do that. Or, you know, basically they kind of talk about their experience and, you know,
how the body helped.
Thanking the person whose body this was. And just kind of, you know, honoring their, I don't want to say donation, but and it's not even a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like, they're literally dead.
Yeah.
But, you know, just, you know, thanking them for helping with their studies.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a thing for real, but I swear I've read it somewhere.
Yeah.
So, doctors, if you're listening, please tell me.
Nice of us to presume that doctors listen to our...
We are highbrow entertainment.
Anyway.
We've got corndles and prophylactics.
Prophylactics. Well, speaking of families,
if I come here next week and there's not a condom on that corndle, I'm going to be so upset.
Gosh, I don't know if we have any condoms in our house anymore. Surely we do. I'll check Jarek's nightstand. I'll check his wallet. I'm sure
there's probably one from like 10 years ago.
I was going to say 20 years ago, and then I had to do some math in my head. I was like, yeah, 20.
When he was 13?
14. He's going to be 35 in
January. I thought he was only yeah, I guess he is a year older than me. That's right. Because I was like, I thought he was only a year older than me, and then I was like, I'm already 33. Okay.
Yeah, he's going to be 35 in January, so...
Let's get back to it.
You can cut that part out if you want, Jarek. Just remember your mom listens, so just... Whatever you want her to know about how young you were when you were sexually active. Keep whatever.
She already knows.
I know, she probably does.
She's a mom.
Okay, speaking of families, because of the resurrectionists that were going around, families of the deceased would sometimes invest in iron coffins or mort safes, which were basically iron cages that would go over graves, which look really badass, in an attempt to keep their deceased loved ones safe from grave robbing, essentially. Okay, so that's our background. And now I'm going to introduce you to a couple guys. Okay? So our first one is...
Hannah, I'm already married.
Sorry. Well, they're both named William, so they are going to go by their last names.
Oh, I was going to say Willie and Billy.
If you want to try to keep that straight, go for it. I've listed them by their last names.
Last names will work for mine.
Okay. William Burke is our first one. So, Burke was born...
He's a wolf man.
I know, right? He was born in 1792 in Ireland to middle-class parents.
He looks Irish.
He does look Irish. He joined the British Army as a teenager and got married shortly afterwards. But in 1818, when he was 26, after an argument with his father-in-law, Burke abandoned his family and his wife and settled in Scotland. There, he remarried a woman named Helen, who went by Nellie. McDougall was her last name.
I like Nellie.
I know.
Maybe that's Josh's girlfriend's name.
Oh, Nellie.
Nellie?
What a good, yeah.
That's a
or
guess.
Helen. Yeah. You know. Or William. I don't know. And in 1827, Burke and Nellie moved to Edinburgh. There, Burke became a cobbler, and he was known to be industrious and good-humored. And although he was raised Catholic, he ended up as a... I'm going to put this in air quotes because I don't know, considering the rest of the story. Fairly devout Presbyterian, and was allegedly rarely seen without a Bible. Take that with a grain of salt, considering what you'll find out about him later. So, I don't know.
Bible with a cutout with a flask hidden in it.
Yeah, like, who knows? Okay, William Hare is our other guy.
He has less hair than the other William.
Yep, that's how you can remember them. I don't know. Burke and Hare.
Hairless. Actually, I don't know. Let me see the scruff on his face. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Is that like shadows to like highlight cheekbones, of which he has very nice pronounced cheekbones.
Listen, we're back to episode 1 where we're trying to
But
identify facial hair.
His nose is way too long, and coming from someone with a way too long nose, I can say that.
So, yeah, I think those are just shadows of his cheekbones. He was born either between 1792 and 1804 or in 1807, somewhere in Ireland. Very little is known about his early life, but he moved to Edinburgh in the mid-1820s and worked as a coal miner's assistant. And while there, he stayed at a lodge or an inn called Tanner's Close. And this lodge was owned by a man named Logue, I think is how we're going to pronounce that. So it's owned by Logue and Margaret Laird, a couple, Logue and Marg. And in 1826, Logue dies, kicks the bucket. And so Hare marries his widow, Margaret, and takes over the business. So now Hare owns Tanner's Close, the inn.
Okay.
Hare was described as, quote, illiterate and uncouth, a lean and quarrelsome, violent and amoral character with scars from old wounds about his head and brow. Which, just a...
So kind of the antithesis of...
that picture.
Well, no, the other guy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Who was all like, oh, he was a devout Presbyterian and never without a Bible.
Yeah, which... I don't know who's describing him as that, because, again, we're gonna get into it, and neither one of them... I feel like they could both be described as Hare, because... I don't know who's describing Burke as this devout Presbyterian with a Bible, because... Okay. So, Burke and Hare meet in 1827, and apparently they just, like, immediately become best friends. They
like,
just...
Hey, you're awful? I'm awful, too.
I'm awful, too.
Did we just become best friends?
I was about to say, it's like that episode, that scene in Step Brothers. They just immediately become best friends. And so much
more room for activities.
No, they literally did this. Like, they become best friends, And so Burke and Nellie decide that they're going to move in to the inn that Hare and Margaret own. Like, they're just like, we're just going to live together because this seems so fun. And they probably made bunk beds. I don't know. And
it's like a weird Full House kind of a thing.
I know. Like, I don't know if he was giving them, I don't know where they were living before and if they were getting kicked out. And I don't know what the deal was. But they move in, and then the two couples together quickly gain this reputation for just being, like, heavy drinkers, loud, disruptive, like, you know those couples. Like, you know those couples. So, I don't know where this devout Presbyterian man with the Bible went, but they're now just drunk, loud couples. Okay, so within a year, in November of 1827, a man named Donald, who was staying at the lodge, died of dropsy. Do you know what dropsy is?
I've heard of it, and I can't remember what it was, but I know I've heard of that.
So it's essentially edema or like swelling caused by fluid retention, and I think it can be caused by like any number of things.
Okay.
I don't know. So he dies, and when he died, he owed £4 in back rent. And let me tell you, I did so much conversion of how much was £4 in 1827, and then how much was that amount in US dollars.
Well, they probably charged the interest to be, you know, what was he? You know, 180 pounds, 200 pounds? Was he a big guy?
So he owed approximately £500, or $600 in today's money in back rent, which like isn't a lot, but it's not like nothing. So I don't know.
I just hope everyone got my whole pounds to pounds joke.
I think everyone got it. It's hilarious. So
not.
So, Hare is very upset because this guy dies, and he's like, "Oh, you owed me, you know, like $400 or whatever, 500, whatever."
That's good drinking money.
I mean, it is, and I guess if you're running an inn and you're charging like,
this is a business,
you know, $500 or $600 a room,
you can't just go die in my room without paying your bill first.
Yeah. So
you got to check out before you can check out.
So these two buddies talk, and they're like, "Hey, why don't we
sell his body
to some anatomist, because that is the thing." So I guess Donald didn't have any family, so a local parish paid to have a coffin provided, and Hare and Burke waited until after that was done, and then they removed the body from the coffin, put it under a bed, and then they took...
Having flashbacks to an early episode.
I know. And then they filled the coffin with bark that they got from a local tanner, which I did not research this. I'm going to assume that this kind of bark is different because tanners don't work with wood. They work with leather. Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume the bark from a tanner is different than regular bark. Anyways, they fill it up with something that's
probably just heavy. That
weighs approximately the same as a body. Approximately however many pounds Donald weighed. Mm-hmm. Just throw it back to your original joke.
Which I kind of regretting making a deal about it now, because my whole checking out before you check out was way funnier. And you just glossed right over that one.
Don't worry, there's plenty of other opportunities.
This is what you pay me for.
I don't pay Katy, guys. Don't worry.
That's why the jokes suck.
So, after the coffin is taken away, they take Donald's body to Edinburgh University, and they ended up in Surgeons Square, which I think is a very appropriate name for, and I guess they're just asking around, and they end up speaking with Dr. Robert Knox. And Dr. Knox was a well-reputed doctor who had been practicing since 1814 and, according to his biographer, had, quote, almost single-handedly raised the profile of the study of anatomy in Britain. So, like, pretty well studied doctor, I guess.
Can you imagine being one of the first anatomists? And, like, you know, like, you're a doctor and you're talking to your doctor friend and, you know, you just tried to save this guy by bleeding him dry with leeches and he died. And it's like, man, sometimes I wish we could just, like, do you ever just want to, like, what's in there? Do you ever just want to, like, cut him open? What'd you say? No, nothing. I mean...
Nothing.
But, you know, like, if we just sliced
see
him
what's
open
in
and
there.
took a peek, dug around a little bit, just to see what's going on in there. What are you... That's blasphemy. I was just kidding. It's just making sure you weren't into anything weird like that.
Yeah. No, I don't do that. I've never done that before. Nothing like that. Well, Dr. Knox held dissections twice a day for over 400 pupils, and he promised, quote, a full demonstration on fresh anatomical subjects. And when he was approached by these two mysterious men with this fresh anatomical subject, he offered them £7 and 10 shillings, which was about 900 pounds in today's money, which is about $1,000 US.
Okay, so yeah, definitely made back their with, you know, made money on it.
Yeah, and so Burke and Hare were like, "Hells yeah, we'll take that." So they split it like 60-40.
Mm-hmm.
Hare took £4 5 shillings because he was owed the back.
Well,
rent.
yeah, he had to, you know, pay back the business.
Yeah. Burke took £3 5 shillings, which, by the way, trying to do fucking conversions with shillings. Good grief. Y'all, my search history is fucked. I'm searching for, like, what do shillings mean? How many shillings in a pound? How to convert shillings? How many is 1 shilling? I don't understand. It's 1 shilling is like a 20th of a pound. It's very confusing. I feel like I understand Harry Potter money better than I understand actual British money.
I think it's only fair that they have confusing money because their measurement system makes sense versus our measurement system.
That's true. This is very true.
So,
which I still can.
Also, our money probably doesn't make that much sense anyway. We're just used to it because we grew up with it.
Yeah, that's true. Whatever.
I just wish our money was more like Canadian money.
Does Canadian money make sense?
The bills are all different colors.
Oh.
And it's waterproof.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's pretty.
Oh, it's pretty.
But that's the main thing that I like the most is that all the bills are different colors.
Are they going to change all the money? All the British money?
I don't know. That's probably very expensive.
Okay. On their way out, one of Dr. Knox's assistants told them that Knox would be, quote, glad to see them again when they had another to dispose of. Which was...
I feel like I've heard this one before.
Which, like, I feel like was pretty clever of them, of being like, we're not saying anything,
you know, in case somebody else dies and you're in, and no one else claims them.
Like, wink, wink, if you happen to come across another fresh corpse,
we're here.
We're not gonna turn it away. Yeah. You know, whatever. All right, so there is some disagreement over the exact order of the next bit of events. So we're just going to kind of go with what we got here.
They got tired of waiting for luck.
Yep. Take a drink.
Take a sip, folks.
Take a drink. All right, so in January or February of 1828... a lodger named Joseph developed a fever, which you just don't do in this inn. And Hare and Margaret, his wife, were quote, concerned, that him being sick might be bad for business. So...
they tried to get him well by giving him arsenic-laced soup.
Close. Hare had Burke give him some whiskey. And then...
Give him some more whiskey.
After he had some whiskey, Burke laid across his chest while Hare suffocated him with his hand over his nose and mouth. And historian Lisa Rosner would call this method of murder, quote, ingenious, because Burke laying across the person would prevent movement and also force all of the air out of their body. And it would also prevent any air from getting in because Hare was covering their mouth. So, like, without modern forensics, it was, like, basically undetectable because they're not, like, manually strangling them.
Yeah, no, if you're choking somebody that's going to leave bruising, there might still be some bruising on the face, but also if he's drunk, and already he's, you know, a little incapacitated because of the fever, but then he's drunk, and if you're, you know, laying across him, you're probably not going to have any, like, obvious bruising because it's not localized strong. It's a broad pressure.
Yep.
There's also not going to be any, like, defensive wounds of him trying to, like, struggle and, you know.
Yep. It's actually kind of terrifying if you think about it. Do you ever kind of... This might be a little bit too personal. Do you ever think about, like, how easily, like, someone could just... Not, like, someone, but, like...
how easily
like, your husband could, like, overpower you and, like... I don't know. Sometimes I, like, forget that Jarek is, like, much stronger than me, and then he'll, like, jokingly, in a way, because I very
Sheldon and I like to wrestle.
I very much trust Jarek, obviously. But, like, sometimes I'll jokingly, like, demonstrate, and, like, I'll be like, yeah, you could probably kill me if you wanted to. Or, like, you know, if he wanted to lay across me and keep me down and probably suffocate me, he probably could.
No, Shelton has ridiculously ticklish feet, and he hates it with passion of 1,000 suns. And so obviously any chance I get, if I see his exposed foot, I'm gonna tickle it. And so I'll, like, try and, you know, like, grab his legs and, like, lay down, and, like, we end up, you know, kind of wrestling around so I can try and tickle his feet, and I'm like, yeah, no, he's stronger than me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a little terrifying.
But also, he takes sleeping pills, so it'd be so much easier for me to just...
Yeah, we have the power of being responsible and...
I have no, you know, qualms. You know, people are like, oh, poison is a woman's medicine. Like, yeah, because it's smart, effective, it gets the job done with almost no work. It is so easy.
My dad has always, we've always joked, I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story. So my mom has always put, like, she's always, I guess, like, refilled their, like, what do you call them? Those little medicine.
Yeah, just medicine capsules.
Capsule thing, or, like, the little.
Day of the week.
Thank you. Those
Sheldon
things.
calls them my old lady pill holders.
Yeah, I have one.
I have two. One for morning pills and one for night pills.
My mom will do those for, and it's usually like vitamins or whatever, but she does those for herself and my dad. And there was a time when my dad was on like something for anxiety. And my mom she's always been in charge of that or whatever. And at some point, I don't know why my mom decided that he was done taking these. And she just, like, weaned him off of them without telling him. And I don't know what she replaced them with, but she slowly put him on a placebo and didn't tell him.
And she's a nurse, right?
Yeah, and she just slowly, like, weaned him off of these pills until one day, I don't know if she finally just told him, like, oh, yeah, you haven't been taking those anxiety pills for, like, 2 months or something. And then he realized that he didn't, you know, like, it worked fine. Thank goodness it worked fine for him.
Yeah.
But he
maybe
was
it
like,
had a really bad side effect, like gave him awful gas or something, and she's like, I can't live with this. I'd much rather him being anxious ball of nerves.
He was like, oh my God,
stand
your
this
mom.
awful gas.
He was like, your mom could kill me if she wanted to. I was like, yeah, mom could probably kill us all if she. But I could probably do that to Jarek. He could suffocate me to death.
Uh-huh.
He could physically kill me. Mm-hmm. But I could probably poison him if I needed
Metaphysically kill him?
I could poison him if I needed to.
Well, you said physically kill you.
Well, sorry. He could... I don't know what the word is. He could manually kill me. That's the word. He could manually kill me, and I could medically kill him. I don't know what the word... No, I could just... Whatever. Okay, sorry.
Shelton and I often joke, or it's not really... It's one of those, it's not a joke, but it's a joke.
Yeah.
We always say that we're never getting divorced, and the only way out is in a body bag.
Mm-hmm. We have a body bag now. It's called our Christmas tree bag. Those are conveniently the size of... We tested it out last year. I can fit in one.
We're not setting up our Christmas tree this year because we're going out of town. Yeah. Also, our Christmas tree is older than I am. And I think next year is going to be the year that we finally buy a new Christmas tree.
Oh.
I'm excited about it.
It's exciting.
Because... again, not only is it so old and lots of branches and things, there's just lots of raw, twisted metal.
Yeah.
It's just, there's lots of tetanus all over this tree.
Yeah. And you're going to have a crawling, walking baby next year, so.
Oh, no, he's already crawling.
You're going to have a walking baby next year.
He's also already walking.
I'm sorry, what?
It's not on his own, but he's taking steps now. I know.
Katy.
I know. You just need to come over and hang out with him.
After Joseph was dead, Hare and Burke took him back to Dr. Knox. Or sorry, they went back to Dr. Knox, and they're like, hey, we found another dead body.
He had a fever.
And Dr. Knox paid them £10 this time.
Oh, he must have been a fresh
corpse. And that is approximately £1,200 in today's money, which is about $1,400 US dollars.
Is this story going to be about the birth of forensic science? Because all these corpses start showing up and it's like, oh, he died in an interesting manner.
Wouldn't that be fun if that's what the story was about?
And he's like, wow, I was just studying anatomy, but now I've started a whole new science. A brand new field of study. Thanks, guys.
The name of the episode is Dr. Knox, the father of forensic pathology.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be cool. That's not what it's about. It's called the Burke and Hare murders. Sorry. So after Joseph, an unnamed male traveler came to the inn. He was from Cheshire. And he was selling matches and tinder, which was a thing, I guess, that you could sell and get by with. And he became sick with jaundice, which, as we already determined, becoming sick is a big no-no in this inn. And again, Hare was concerned that the sickness was bad for business. So he and Burke killed him the same way.
Well, it worked so well the first time.
It did, because Burke's a big guy and Hare, I guess, has broad hands. And then on February 12th, I don't know, I have small hands, so I can't. I've tried to, I don't want to say I tried to do that with Jarek, but I can't suffocate Jarek with just my hand. He also has a beard. That makes it harder. I don't know if you've tried. Sheldon still has his beard, right?
Yep.
Try covering his mouth and nose at the same time. The beard makes it hard.
I'm going to go home and just do that. And he'll be like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, it's my homework.
The beard makes it hard. The beard lets air through. I don't know. Maybe throw your
bushy.
Throw your body on top
you've also got to really put your palm there to create a seal so he can't breathe around
It's hard with the beard.
I'm going to try it.
Okay, I'm just letting you know. It's hard to create a suction when there's a lot of hair around the mouth.
Gentle listeners, if you or your partner have a beard, try this at home.
But have a safe move.
A hand signal.
As Anthony Porowski would say, have a safe move. Because sometimes you can't speak when you're having fun times. On February 12th...
Who would say that?
Antoni Porowski from Queer Eye.
Oh.
Remember I told you one of my comfort videos is watching Antoni answer YouTube question or Twitter questions or reading. Sorry, it's Antoni reading thirst tweets. That's what it is.
Doesn't ring a bell.
I'll send it to you. Antoni is like fourth in line for husband. I have a list going, a roster.
Shelton has a penchant for really bad, like, trashy reality. Mm-hmm. He recently got me sucked into as well. Below deck sailing yacht.
Ooh, so there's, like, I've heard of that.
There's the below deck, like, there's multiple different shows, and this is the sailing yacht is the flavor that we've been watching. And so we watched all of the first season. Now we're going, or the third season. Now we're going back, and like we've gotten involved. I've actually looked up these people in life to learn more about them now.
Queer Eye?
Oh, I was like, I did the ADD thing where I start talking and I forget what I'm talking about halfway through. So anyway, season 3, the chef Marcos, I love him.
Oh,
he just seems like a cool guy in general. Also, he's a fucking wizard in the kitchen. Like, the stuff that he sends out of that galley, and then you look, the galley is literally the size of our 2 chairs here. It's magical. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's, I want to lick the TV. And again, he's just a cool guy. And so we're watching. I'm like, oh, I love this character. I love this person. But every episode, I'm like, oh, I love Marcos. And then the other night we were watching, and I was like, that's my hall pass to Shelton. And he was like, fine, Daisy's mine. And I'm like, that's cool.
Who's Daisy?
She's the chief stew.
The what?
The chief stewardess.
Oh.
They call him Stews for short.
Sorry, I heard stew. I thought we were still in the kitchen. I was like, the what? The chief stew. Okay.
Or Kelsey, and I'm like, that's fine. Okay. I support that. And I was like, Colin is my other, he's the chief engineer. Colin is my other hall pass.
Nice. Okay, all right. Well, currently Chris Evans has taken spot number 1.
1 through 3 for you?
1 through 2, probably. I don't know. I've moved Josh Allen into the running just because I've heard he's having issues with his girlfriend. So, I mean, if he's available, he's available. And, I'm not going to be mad just because he's probably like 23. I don't know how old he is. He might be young. Whatever. He's cute. He can throw a ball.
Speaking of, I had a thought the other day. Very sobering.
Oh, okay.
We were watching football. The pros.
And
I was like, I'm older than most, if not all of the men on that field.
Don't tell me that. That's... Listen... The fucking commentators a couple weeks ago, NC State's been having trouble with our quarterbacks. They're like all injured. So our second string that is injured now is a true freshman. And the commentators said something a couple weeks ago, and they're like, oh yeah, MJ Morris is the first true freshman quarterback to throw 3 touchdown passes in a game at NC State since Phillip Rivers. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they're like, oh yeah, MJ Morris wasn't even alive when Phillip Rivers did that. I was like, I have a fucking picture of Phillip Rivers on my refrigerator that I took with my own body when I was like 12 years old of him when he was a fucking sophomore at NC State. What do you mean MJ Morris wasn't fucking alive when Phillip Rivers did that when he was a freshman? That shit. Talking about making me feel old. I was like, okay, I'll just take the shovel.
This episode is going off the rails. Jarek, you have your work cut out for you on editing. Sorry, John.
Jeez.
Sorry, dear. All right, so back to our episode.
Feel free to pour more wine if you would like.
Probably need to.
Okay, so they've killed this unnamed Cheshireman, if you will.
How much is he worth?
We're getting to that. On February 12th, Hare and Burke, or perhaps their wives.
sorry.
It's okay. I
had to take a leak.
It's hilariously...
Because already pouring the wine sounds like peeing, but then you've got the aerator, so it sounds like whizzing is the appropriate word.
I mean, honestly, we probably could take the aerator out at this point, but it's... I'm just gonna get to the... That's probably good right now. It's hard to estimate in a stemless glass.
Especially since it's wider.
It's pretty, though. My mother-in-law got this for me.
I like it.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm using your glass. She just left today. So, February 12th, Hare and Burke, or their wives, invited a woman named Abigail Simpson into the lodge. Abigail was from Gilmerton, which was nearby, which is all you need to know. Mm-hmm. And she lived off of a pension, but supplemented it by selling salt in nearby towns, which was why she was in Edinburgh. Once she was at Hare's lodge, Abigail was given enough to drink that she couldn't go home. And then they killed her by smothering her with a pillow. And then they put her body in a tea chest, which I looked up tea chests because I thought a tea chest would be much smaller. It's not. It's like the size of the chest that I have in the hallway out here. Like a person-sized chest.
Okay.
And it's unclear if they brought Abigail and the Cheshire Man to Dr. Knox at the same time or if they brought them separately. But they both ended up going to Dr. Knox, or like being taken to him. And they got 10 pounds each, or like 10 pounds for each body. After Abigail, Margaret Hare invited an elderly woman into the inn and gave her a bunch of whiskey. When she fell asleep, Margaret had her husband place not a mattress, but like a mattress cover, like a cross between a mattress and a mattress cover. It's called a bed tick, which I'm going to argue is a really terrible name, over her nose and mouth, and then left it there for her to just slowly suffocate to death.
Gruesome.
And when she was dead, Burke and Hare took her to Dr. Knox and got 10 pounds for her. In April...
I wonder how much I would be worth.
Probably 10 pounds.
Yes. I'm a worthwhile specimen.
Spoiler alert, they either get 8 pounds or 10 pounds for... And I think
that's just the going rate.
I think it depends on, like, the freshness of the body, honestly.
What if you brought, like, an amputee or something? Would you get...
Oh, I feel like you'd get
less.
Would
you get, like, a quarter less? Because you're missing a limb?
Probably. But I bet if you brought someone that had, like some kind of cool, like, malformation, you'd get a little bit more.
If you brought in, like, the Elephant Man?
Yeah. Because then they'd get to study that.
Yeah. They'd probably be like, no, that is above our pay grade. We ain't never seen that before. We ain't never going to see that again. We don't need it.
So, in April, Burke, again, the devout Presbyterian, met Mary Patterson and Janet Brown, like, just out at the pub or something.
At a Bible study, obviously.
Sorry.
They saw him walking around carrying his Bible, and they got to talking.
Sorry, I meant to say at a Bible study. They met. And he bought them drinks and then invited them back to the lodge. But instead of going back to the lodge, they ended up at Burke's brother's house, which seems kind of weird. And his brother, I guess, was used to Burke bringing home random women because his brother just left for work and left Mary asleep at the table, and Burke and Janet just stayed up talking and drinking.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. But then Nellie, Burke's wife, suddenly came in. She, like, I feel like got a little tip and starts accusing her husband of having an affair, which I'm like, I mean, yeah, like
he's hanging out with two women in some other place.
Yeah, one of them's passed out.
Yeah.
They're all drunk.
Exactly.
I would also be suspicious.
It's maybe the middle of the day because his brother went to work.
Yeah, who knows what time it is? I have no idea.
I mean, who knows what shift he's working, but, like, didn't seem like there's a lot of jobs back in that day that had, like, night
Maybe
shifts.
he was a resurrection man.
All right.
Who knows what he did. So they argue, and Burke throws a glass at Nellie, and then Janet is like, I'm gonna go. She's like, I didn't know.
She's gonna leave Mary passed out on the table?
Yeah, she's like, I didn't know you were married. I'm gonna go. This seems like a bad situation. And then Nellie is like, well, I'm gonna go get your buddy Hare and his wife, and we're all gonna come back here and, like,
do our thing.
Have a chat or something. I don't know. I feel like she did a lot of hand motions. So they leave.
Sometimes I wish this was a recorded,
I know.
live recorded or a video show.
Do you not think people could hear, like,
the swoop?
Like, the effort it took me to do that?
It's
Anyways.
like, I'm trying to do the disco move but with, Parkinson's or something.
Yeah.
Just all over the place.
All over the place. So, everyone has now left Burke alone with a passed out
woman.
Mary, and he kills her. I have no idea what happens between, like, the time he kills her and then, like, later that afternoon, but at some point in that afternoon, he has talked to Hare and tells him what happened, and they put her body in a tea chest. Why everyone has a person-sized chest in their house that they don't miss when it's, like, disappears, I don't know.
It's for this purpose, really. They say it's a tea chest.
Like, if that cedar chest in my hallway was suddenly
But
missing...
it's more like a casual tea chest.
Oh, that was good. Casual tea chest.
That's why you pay me the big bucks.
It is. I'm going to have to start paying you something.
I've earned my second glass of wine.
You have earned your second glass of wine. And occasionally I give you snacks. So, Burke gives his wife Mary's skirt and petticoat. I guess as an apology present?
Free clothes is free clothes.
I don't know. And then they sell the body, which is allegedly still warm, to Dr. Knox, who only gives them £8 for it, which I feel like a still warm body should give you, like...
I think maybe it was to discourage.
They're like
we don't want somebody coming looking for her, so stop sending us super fresh ones.
One of his assistants said, hey, where did you get this? Because she looks familiar. And the men were like, oh, she just got really drunk. She drank herself to death. And then we bought her off of, quote, an old woman in Canagant, whatever, a town. We bought her off an old woman.
Yep.
Dr. Knox was apparently, like, very thrilled with this body. Which, again, I don't know why he undersold her. Maybe she was small. I don't know.
Maybe he just didn't have the money.
I don't know.
To offer more.
And he stored the body in whiskey, ironically, for 3 months before he dissected it. When Janet went looking for Mary later, she was told that she had moved to Glasgow. Mary moved, which is technically true.
Just not of her own volition.
You know.
She moved.
She moved.
To a whiskey barrel.
So...
Better than a vat of acid.
I know. It's not great. Sometime later, again, timelines are foggy, a woman named Mrs. Haldane went to stay at Hare's lodge. Burke described her as, quote, a stout old woman, which, shut the fuck up, okay, Burke, whatever. One night, Mrs. Haldane became very drunk, and she fell asleep in the stable, which we've all been there, fallen asleep in stables. And
I bet your husband has.
I bet he has. He took
Not even drunk.
He took that ketamine.
Special K.
Special K. So she fell asleep in the stables, and while she was there, Hare and Burke, surprise, smothered her. And then they sold her body to Dr. Knox, presumably for $8 to $10. Who knows? Pounds. Sorry, 8 to 10 pounds. Several months later, her daughter, who is either named Margaret or Peggy, which I feel like are the same name, isn't Peggy?
Peggy's a nickname for Margaret.
Okay. Peggy.
No idea how that happens. But I also don't know how you get Dick out of Richard. So.
I don't know. I like the name Peggy, though. I also like Aunt Peggy.
I was about to say because of Hamilton.
Yeah.
That's why you like that.
So Aunt Peggy comes and stays at the lodge. And I don't know if she's asking about her mom or not, or if she's just staying there out of coincidence. But she stays there. Burke gets her drunk and also kills her, but just on his own. Hare's not involved. And then sells her body to Dr. Knox for $8. Sorry, 8 pounds. I have the pound symbol here. It was very hard to get it written on my stupid work computer. In May of 1928, an older woman was staying at the lodge, and Burke smothered her while she was intoxicated, sold her body for 10 pounds to Dr. Knox. And one night, Burke lured a woman named Effie into the stables. He actually knew Effie because she was a, quote, cinder gatherer, which sounds very much close to like a Cinderella thing. I think they described her as someone who's like, I feel like she was someone who found things like in garbage and like in the streets and stuff and then resold them like not like a scavenger, but like
a flipper.
Yeah, like she would find things that other people discarded and then resell them to make money. Okay. But she had previously sold Burke leather scraps for his cobbling business. So he knew her. But he lured her into the stables, got her drunk, and then he had Hare kill her. And they got 10 pounds for her body from Dr. Knox. Burke also encountered a policeman helping a woman home one night who was too drunk to stand. He offered to take her the rest of the way, and the policemen were like, oh, sure, go ahead. Which...
What, because he had better things to do?
I don't know what this cop was thinking. And Burke, instead of taking this woman home, took her to the lodge where he and Hare killed her.
Smothered her and sold her.
Yeah, and sold her body for 10 pounds. In June, Burke encountered an elderly woman and her mute grandson, who was 12. Sorry. Sorry. They were on the street, and they invited them back to the lodge. When they were there, they gave the woman whiskey until she fell asleep in the back bedroom while her grandson was being watched by their wives. When she fell asleep, they suffocated her in their, quote, usual way. Then they thought about turning the grandson loose on the streets since he couldn't speak, but in the end, they decided to kill him as well. So Burke took him in the back bedroom where his grandmother had been killed and snapped his neck. Sorry. He would later confess that this particular murder haunted him because of the, quote, piteous expression of the wistful eyes as the victim looked in his face.
Way to dig the knife in.
I'm sorry. That's what he said. I mean, like, I hope he felt bad about it. He killed a kid.
A mute kid at that.
He killed a bunch of other people, too.
That's what you get. Telling me about child murder. Spilling your wine on yourself.
I spilled it on the dark sweatshirt, so it doesn't count. That's why I wear dark clothes.
With the white logo.
Yeah, but, like, it's the vinyl part of the white logo. I got it from our... I got it from our Redbubble store. Which I actually checked today is part of a Black Friday sale. So.
Oh, sweet.
So, fun fact, the regular casualty chest couldn't fit 2 bodies. It was a 1-person body tea chest only. So they had to use a herring barrel. Do you have any fun puns for herring barrel?
Give me a minute.
Okay.
I'm still reeling about the poor kid, the 12-year-old boy. You do realize that in 11 and a half years,
Okay.
11 and a half years, I'm going to have a 12-year-old boy.
Say that. I have a 12-year-old nephew. I don't pick these up. Okay. I don't pick the episodes for the 1 out of 16 people that they murder. Spoilers.
We weren't up to number 16 yet.
I know. Sorry. Spoilers. It's not even the worst one they do.
Oh, gosh. We are getting close to 16, though. Mm-hmm. That's got to be like, what, 12 or 13 now?
I don't even know. I'm going to make you guess how much money they get up to in the end.
Well, I mean, if there's 16 of them, and they're getting, almost, 10 pounds per, that's probably, but they didn't get 10 pounds for every one of them, so it's less than 160 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And if 10 pounds is, what, $1,000 about, you said? Well, it was a little bit more than $1,000, right? Why are you giving me that?
Because I'm not giving you any hints. It's to get back at you for making fun of me for not being able to do math on the quarters.
I wasn't making fun of you.
They had to use their herring barrel. Okay. So they put the 2 bodies in a herring barrel, which I assume is just a barrel that herring the fish are used or is used to, what am I trying to say? Herring are stored in. They put it on a cart, but Hare's horse refused to pull the cart the whole way to Surgeon Square. So they had to get a hand cart and hire a porter to help them get the rest of the way.
And the porter was like, "What's in this?" And they're like, "It's fish," but that was just a red herring.
That was good. Very good.
It wasn't.
I mean, it was close. I mean, better than I could do.
Mild cleverness.
Mild.
The sad thing is how long it took me to think of that one. Like a full 45 seconds.
I was still trying to think of a pun with herring in it. And I couldn't.
Well, I'm also thinking of Hare and Burke.
Yeah.
I've also been trying to think of, do you remember, people came up with a list of funny things to say when telemarketers call? Like, back in the day with landlines and stuff. People be like, "Oh, Sweetie's mortuary, you stab them, we slab them."
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And I'm like, Hare and Burke's in. You're in a tea chest. Give me some time. I gotta workshop this.
That's okay. While you're testing out the covering Shelton's nose and mouth.
Well, also when you said earlier the person referred to it as an ingenious method. Mm-hmm. Before you said an ingenious method, I thought she was actually gonna name after them, mm-hmm. like that method of the 2-person smothering thing. I thought she was gonna actually give it a name.
Oh.
Like the
Hare and Burke method.
Like the cover and lean or something like that. Oh. Cover their mouth and lean on them.
That would be smart. She didn't do that. No, sorry. She's just a biographer. She's not.
They should definitely have trademarked that style of murder.
They were a little busy trying to do all this.
It's not one I've heard of before, so.
Wow. We can bring it back if we.
Most of the time, because I don't hear a lot of duo murderers.
Well, I've always said you have beautiful long fingers. So if we ever decide to get into the
big palms too, I just have
murder
big hands.
Business, I can be the one that lays on them.
That sounds good.
And then you can cover. Okay, so this is perfect.
Except it sucks because I gotta be the ones that look in their eyes.
Yeah, and this is great for me.
And you're just like,
I just have to throw my body weight across.
Taking a nap. I'm stuck.
I just get to play dead fish. Have you ever played that game? This is a great marriage tip. It's actually a game me and my sister used to play.
You just lay on another person and flop. And
you go dead weight, and it's called dead fish.
Or in Psych, going boneless.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It's just different names for different things. Mm-hmm. But it's a fun...
Okay, I'll go dead fish on Shelton later.
Yeah, and all you have
to... that goes.
You do that.
I have done that, or I do that every now and then.
Just announce it. Dead fish.
Okay.
I'll
announce it.
And then he just has to, and then you can see how good he is.
He does it to me too sometimes. Yeah.
It prepares you for if you can move a body or not. So
last night he came to bed and I was still up reading my book, and I was like, "Oh, you're still awake? I thought you'd have been asleep." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Unexpected plot twist." And he's like, "How about?" Then he like curled up behind me, spooned up behind me. He's like, "How about this for an unexpected plot twist?" And I was expecting like, something flirty or a come on. Nope, he attempts a wet willy, but it's so dark. He pokes me in the temple.
Oh, no.
And then, is like, wait, no, that's the side of her head. And then, gets the tip of my ear and then tries to get to my ear, but I'm, swatting him away.
How are you reading? How dark was it?
My Kindle.
Oh, okay. I was like...
Braille.
I was like, how is it so dark you can't find your ear, yet light enough for you to read? Because when I read in bed, I have a lamp on. I was very confused. I was like, what's wrong with your husband's eyes?
Nothing. The bastard has 20/20 vision.
Oh, man, that's funny.
And they're pretty, too.
Yeah. You got a cute baby out of him, though. So.
But I didn't get his eyes.
Like, your baby has your eyes, though.
Yeah, he does. He really does.
He really does.
He looks like me.
He does.
All the family agrees.
I know. I love that about him, though. He looks just like you.
Mama's boy.
He's your little baby boy. Okay, sorry. I cry every time I talk about your child.
We're getting drunk.
No, we're getting sentimental. We're two 30-ish-year-old girls talking about your baby that's getting old.
We're women's.
Man, it's the holidays. So, Dr. Knox pays them £8 each for the bodies. And then when they get back, Hare is mad because his horse wouldn't pull the cart the whole way, so he shoots the horse. On June 24th, Burke and Nellie, go out of town to visit Nellie's father. And when they return, Burke noticed that Hare has some new clothes and has a little bit more money on hand than when they left. And he's like,
you can't do the smother and lean.
Yeah, you've been selling some bodies while I was away? And Hare's like, no. And then Burke's like, I'm going to call Dr. Knox and ask him. And Dr. Knox was like, yeah, I bought a body off of him for $8 the other day.
£8.
£8. So this led to a falling out between Hare and Burke. And
the dynamic duo is done for.
So Burke and Nellie move out, and they go to stay with Burke's cousin, Brogan, which, dumbest name I've ever heard.
There's a town in Virginia that we have to drive through.
Is it called Brogan?
Brosville.
Oh, gosh. Brosville. It's stupid.
It is, and I love it. Next time we drive through, I'll see if there's a souvenir shop somewhere, and I'll get you a t-shirt.
Keychain or something, yeah.
Brosville.
Well, Brogan has his own lodge, so Burke and Nellie move into there. But by late September or early October, Hare and Burke, they can't stay mad at each other. They're best friends.
Besties.
They're besties. So Hare's visiting Burke, and they're drinking, and they're, having a great time. And wouldn't you know it, a washerwoman named Mrs. Ostler comes by the property to do some laundry, as is her job. And Burke and Hare are like, let's kill her. So they do.
You know what we haven't done in a while?
We haven't done in a while. Remember when we used to kill people?
It hurts. It still hurts that you did without me, but I'm willing to forgive you and move on.
It would heal this wound. So they kill the washer lady, and they sell her body to Dr. Knox for £8. A few weeks later, Nellie's cousin, Anne McDougal, comes to visit, and the men kill her too. They sell her body for £10 to Dr. Knox.
I wonder if the price is a supply and demand thing.
I don't know. They either get £8 or £10, except for that first one.
Yeah.
And then I think when Dr. Knox realized that they were reliable, he was like, all right, I think it just depended on, like, the body itself. Around this time, Burke claimed that Margaret started suggesting that they kill Nellie because she said that they couldn't trust her because she was... I don't remember. I didn't write that down. Hold on. Let me start that over.
Was she starting to get, not cold feet, but like a conscience?
Well, I was going to say that she was Irish, but they're both Irish.
Couldn't trust her because she was Irish.
Because she was Irish. Around that time, Burke claimed that Margaret started suggesting that they also kill Nellie. And this was because Nellie claimed that, quote, they could not trust her. But Burke allegedly refused because maybe he loved Nellie or liked her or had some kind of loyalty to her. I don't know. He was married to her.
He's like, I already abandoned the first wife.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with this one.
Yeah.
Also, we're getting older. It might be hard to find another one.
Yeah.
She's good for stuff.
Yeah. So early October, Margaret encountered a well-known young man in the streets named Jamie Wilson. Jamie was also known as Daft Jamie.
Oh.
I know, not a great name. He was 18 years old and he had intellectual deficiencies. He also had birth defects that affected his feet and caused him to walk with a limp. And he lived on the streets. He'd been abandoned by his mother at some point. And so he lived on the streets and made a living just by begging. But he was well known. Like, everyone kind of knew who Jamie was because he was like a likable...
Just in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So Margaret persuaded Jamie to come back to the lodge with her. And Hare and Burke gave him some whiskey and convinced him to take a nap in the back room. Once he was asleep, they tried to suffocate him, but Jamie was a big guy, and he was 18, and he fought back, and they had a really long struggle, but eventually they killed him. Damn it. I know. That afternoon, they took him to Dr. Knox, who paid them £10, but several of Dr. Knox's assistants and students recognized Jamie. They were like, this looks like that kid Jamie that we've seen on the street. And Dr. Knox just kept insisting. They're like, no, this wouldn't be anyone that you know. Like, it's not anyone you know. But when news got out that Jamie was missing, Dr. Knox went ahead and performed the dissection, but had the head and feet of the body removed. And just, yeah. Jamie was their 15th victim. So I want you to guess how much money they have made collectively, approximately.
All right. I'm going to guess about 130 pounds.
Okay. I've got 155 pounds.
So there must have been more at 10 than I remembered versus the 8.
Yeah. And I think I
was being conservative.
So in today's money, that is approximately 19,400 pounds, or...
And they say crime doesn't pay.
I know! Or 23,000 US dollars. Which, like, I'm not saying I would murder 15 people for $23,000.
Yeah, I wouldn't murder one person for $23,000.
I wouldn't either. But...
Hold on, let me just revise. Let me re-edit that statement. I wouldn't murder a person.
Correct. Yes.
Period.
Me neither.
End of statement.
Me neither. Me neither.
There was a look you just had.
Me neither. I also wouldn't murder a person.
Methinks the lady doth protest.
I'm just, well, I mean, the whole, like, if it was just people dying in their inn and they were selling their bodies, I mean, like, that would have been
I'd sell a dead body. But I'm not going to make it dead.
Oh, yeah. So, like, we're in agreement.
For those who aren't aware, I just want to clarify that I'm just joking.
About murdering people. She
would
not
selling people's bodies.
Oh, okay. So, like, to be clear, the big mistake they've made here is that they have now murdered a recognizable, well-known person. And people have started to notice.
A feature of the community.
Yes. October 31st.
Ooh.
All Hallows Eve. Burke invited a middle-aged Irish woman named Margaret Docherty.
Doherty?
I don't know.
Doherty?
Docherty.
No,
I don't know. Margaret. He invited Margaret. Everyone's named Margaret. I don't know. Whatever. He invited this lady.
And Peggy.
To come stay with them at Brogan's Lodge. They're still staying at Brogan's Lodge, and they never moved back. Burke and Hare convinced 2 other lodgers who were staying at Brogan's, who were named Anne and James Gray. They were like, you guys are an inconvenience to our plan, because they were already like, we're going to kill this Margaret lady. They're like, hey, Margaret is our family. She's our long-lost cousin. We would like to spend some time with her. Can you go stay at Hare's Lodge? We'll make some room for you. We'll pay for you to go stay there. And so the Grays were like, I guess, yeah, we'll go stay at this other lodge. So Anne and James Gray go stay at the other lodge. Burke and Hare and their wives join in drinking with Margaret, this poor middle-aged Irish woman who thinks that she might be related to these people. Around 9:00 p.m., the Grays returned briefly to get some clothes for their children and found the Burkes and the Hares and Margaret all drinking and dancing. So they're like, glad we left.
Having a nice family reunion, I guess.
Seems a little crazy. Sometime during the night, Burke and Hare murdered Margaret, and they hid her body in a pile of straw at the end of one of the beds. The following morning, the Grays returned for breakfast. Yes, you have a question?
What the fuck is a pile of straw doing at the foot of the bed?
I think that's just a normal thing.
Okay.
They did not explain. I think straw piles were just
not
normal amenity of the inn.
And what year is this now?
1828.
Okay.
I don't know.
I feel like you said 1920 at
Oh,
some
no.
point.
It's definitely the 1820s.
Yeah. No, and I was very confused when you said that. I was like, I probably just heard wrong.
No, it's definitely the 1820s. Don't worry. Yeah, straw piles are just an amenity of... It's actually a feature. You don't want to go to one of those inns that don't have straw piles at the end of their beds. That's how you know it's not a good inn.
Not a quality inn.
No, not a quality inn.
Not a La Quinta. But a Motel 6.
Yeah. It's just a motel and a hotel. Hotels have the straw piles at the end of the beds. Motels do not.
No straw piles.
No. So, 9 a.m., the following morning, I don't know what time, the Grays returned for breakfast, and Anne at some point was like, oh, I've got to go get some stockings that I left on my bed, and she goes to get them, and Burke is like, don't go near the fucking bed, and she was like, okay, that was weird, whatever. He said something again, like, Burke was just acting weird about them going near the bed that had the straw pile. And so, at some point during the day, when they were left alone in the house, the Grays, Anne was like, I'm going to find out what the fuck is going on with this bed. I'm going to, like, go snooping. So they go snooping around, and they find Margaret's body. Ding, ding, ding. There's blood and saliva on her face. And so the Grays are heroes of the story. And they're like, hey, let's go to the police. So the Grays are going to the police. They run into both Margaret and Nellie on their way. And the wives are like trying to bribe them. They said, we'll pay you £10 a week, which they don't have. To not tell.
They barely get 10 pounds of body anymore.
I know, which I feel like just meant they were going to kill them. And they're like, we'll pay you to, like, not go to the police. And the Grays were like,
yeah, no,
we're going to go to the police. This is a quote from a book called Burke and Hare, written by William. I'm going to pronounce this name the way it's spelled and just hope it's correct. Roguehead. Written in 1921. Quote, humanity and the cause of justice owe a deep debt of gratitude to Gray and his wife for their incorruptible integrity. Which sure.
is just a long, highfalutin, fancy way of saying they were the heroes of this story.
Yeah, they did the right thing. Meanwhile, while they're going to the police, Burke and Hare are taking the body to Dr. Knox, who I assume paid them either £8 or £10. Who knows? It didn't say.
Even after the last guy, he still was buying bodies from him?
Yep, he still bought bodies from him.
All right. No judging. It's one of those, like, don't ask, don't tell.
Dr. Knox is like, I'm going to take bodies however I get them.
Yep. He's like, if I don't ask, I don't know. I have plausible deniability.
Exactly. So,
I mean, I may have created a market for murder, but whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So the Grays report what they found, and police go and search the Brogan Lodge. They found bloodstained clothes hidden under the bed. And then the following morning, acting on a tip that they received, I don't know how they got the tip, but they ended up at Surgeon Square visiting Dr. Knox. Dr. Knox showed them Margaret's body, and then the Grays were called to identify her as the guest that Burke and Hare had entertained, which they were like, yep, that's her. So Hare and his wife were arrested that same day, and then a few days later, Burke and Nellie were also arrested, so in custody. Police suspected that Burke and Hare...
How fast do the besties turn on each other?
Just wait. They suspected that the two men and probably their wives had murdered more people, but they didn't have any bodies because all the bodies had been dissected. Yeah, like sold and dissected. So rumors very quickly began to circulate around Edinburgh that they were responsible for, like, literally any missing persons. But Janet Brown came forward and identified some clothes that had belonged to her friend Mary. And a local baker identified a pair of pants that Burke's nephew was wearing that had belonged to Jamie Wilson. Because when they had killed Jamie, they had taken his clothes and given them, like, to their nephews. His Majesty's Advocate... which is just like the...
Sounds like a district attorney.
I know. I think it is. It's like the lead investigator. His name is Sir William Ray. Decided, because they didn't have that much evidence, that they were going to use what was a common technique of the time. They were going to single out one suspect and offer immunity for a confession against the other. And I think it's called turning the king's witness or something. I don't know. So they chose Hare, and on December 1st, 1828, he was offered full immunity from prosecution if he gave details on Margaret Docherty's murder and any others. Since he couldn't be compelled to testify against his wife, she was also given immunity. So that's like two suspects that are like now off the table. So Hare gave a full confession to all the murders because he's now no longer being prosecuted. And on December 4th, Ray brought formal charges against Burke and Nellie for the deaths of Mary Peterson, Jamie Wilson, and Margaret Docherty. And I think that's just because those three were probably the only ones they had.
They had other evidence.
Yeah. Dr. Knox was not charged based on a statement that Burke made to police that stated that he neither told them nor encouraged them to kill anyone, which is like technically true.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, I don't think he should have been charged. Yeah. if you go to a store and you buy something, you're if it happens to be stolen, like, are you also responsible for that crime? No, right? I know that this is a questionable thing.
Yeah.
But again, like we already said, it's like a don't ask, don't tell. Like maybe he should have been a little bit more curious as to the frequency and like the sheer volume of like, wow, how do these two guys have access to so many fresh bodies?
Yeah.
But,
So one investigator did state that he thought Knox was, quote, deficient in principle and heart, but he hadn't technically broken the law.
Yep.
But public opinion was that he was basically the, quote, ringmaster. Public opinion was that they thought he had, like, gotten Burke and Hare to, like, do it, which wasn't true.
Orchestrated it.
Yeah. Which that wasn't true, to be fair, but that didn't stop the public from believing it.
No, nothing will.
The trial began for Burke and Nellie on Christmas Eve, and it was kind of a shit show. Both defense lawyers objected to Burke and Nellie being tried together. Burke's lawyer objected to him being tried for all 3 crimes at once. And so the judge decided to split it all up into 3 trials and let Ray, the, like, district attorney,
prosecutor,
whatever, decide which one to try first. And so he picked Margaret Dougherty because they had the strongest evidence and they still had her body.
And witness testimony.
Exactly. So the witnesses that they brought was one of Dr. Knox's assistants, David Peterson, who testified that Burke and Hare had brought Dr. Knox several corpses. Hare was brought to testify. He said that Burke was the sole murderer of at least Margaret Dougherty and that Nellie had helped. He admitted to helping deliver the body to Dr. Knox, but he declined answering questions about any of the other murders because he technically didn't have to. Margaret Hare testified. She sounds like a piece of work. She brought her baby who had whooping cough into the witness box with her. She used the baby's coughing fits to give herself more time to think, like to think of her answers. Mm-hmm. And then she claimed that she had a poor memory and couldn't recall much of the events. Which, like, can you just imagine being at that trial and this lady brings her sick baby into the witness box with her, and then...
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here wondering if any of them even have kids, too.
2 doctors testified, Dr. Black and Dr. Christensen. Both of them testified that they suspected foul play had been involved in Mrs. Dougherty's murder. But they admitted that they had no forensic evidence to prove that, probably because it was 1928 and, like, that didn't exist.
You did say 1928.
Sorry, 1828. Damn it. On Christmas Day, see, this is a topical episode. It's Christmas time. On Christmas Day, at 9:20 a.m., the jury returned a guilty verdict against Burke. Nellie was found not guilty. Although the way that they said it in Scotland was like not enough evidence or something like that.
Well, you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. There was a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
But Burke.
So Burke was sentenced to death, and I'm going to read a little bit of what the judge said. Quote, which I wish judges said shit like this.
After he was sentenced to death, did his body get sold to Dr. Knox?
You're close.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, this first part, I just wish judges said shit like this. Quote, you may be rest assured that you have now no other duty to perform on earth but to prepare in the most suitable manner for your appearance before the throne of Almighty God to answer for this crime and for every other that you have been guilty of during your life. Okay, so he said that, and then he said later, your body should be publicly dissected and anatomized, and I trust that if it is ever customary to preserve skeletons, yours will be preserved in order that posterity may keep in remembrance your atrocious crimes. So essentially, included in his death sentence was a decree that he was to be publicly dissected and that his skeleton was to be preserved. So on January 28th, 1829, William Burke was hanged in front of a crowd of possibly as many as 25,000 people.
Oh, wow. I guess nothing good was on TV that night.
There's not a lot on TV that night. And February 1st, Burke's body was publicly dissected, not by Dr. Knox, unfortunately, by Professor Monroe at the University of Edinburgh. There was a limited number of tickets sold, which led to a minor riot from students who wanted to get in. Eventually, they negotiated to be brought in or brought through in groups of 50 so that everyone could see the body. And after the dissection, Professor Monroe, I'm just going to say I find this unprofessional, but whatever. Professor Monroe apparently dipped his quill in Burke's blood and wrote, quote, "This is written with the blood of W.M. Burke, who was hanged at Edinburgh. This blood was taken from the head." Whatever.
I mean, yeah.
Sure.
Unprofessional. Petty.
A little petty.
A little bit overkill.
A little bit.
But, so what happened with Hare? Did he continue bringing bodies to Knox?
Well, let me finish with Burke real quick.
Sorry. Are his bones still at the University of Edinburgh?
Yes. Burke's skeleton was preserved. It was given to the Anatomical Museum of the Edinburgh Medical School, where it remains today. His death mask is at the Surgeons' Hall Museum in Edinburgh, as is a pocketbook that is bound with his tanned skin. Yep.
Nice.
The front reads in gold letters, "Burke's Skin Pocketbook." And the back reads, "Executed 28 January 1829. And I thought, I was going to put allegedly in front of that, and then I did a little bit more research. I'm 99% sure that that's actually his
skin.
A book that is made out of his skin.
Well, pocketbook, wouldn't this just be a wallet?
Yeah, it's a small... Yeah, I don't know. And from what I read, it was used. I don't know by who, but it was used by someone.
Maybe that judge. He really had it out for him.
I know, right? Good words. So Hare was released on February 5th. He was kept in custody for a little while for his protection. And then he was given assistance and police protection in leaving Edinburgh because obviously the public wanted to kill him. And eventually he was able to make it out, although it's unknown where he went or what became of him. It's kind of annoying though because reading his whole thing was he was released, he had to get out under with a disguise. And then he got recognized, and then there was this whole thing, and he had to go into hiding, and then, so many, armed policemen had to come out and, dispel the crowds, and I'm you are just using so many police resources to protect this man who literally killed 16 people. Sorry. I mean, not to make a statement, but... using a lot of resources to protect a man that, maybe doesn't need that protection.
When maybe they shouldn't have offered him immunity. What they should have said is, your boy over there, we asked him some questions, and he was pointing the finger at you. Said that you did it all by yourself. Do you want to tell us the truth? And then they go back to the other one. Or you say that they offered the other person immunity to talk, and, you don't actually give them immunity.
Well, an immunity from prosecution does not mean...
the coin?
Immunity from prosecution does not mean immunity from, street justice.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Or maybe the police were counting on street justice.
Well, clearly not, because they gave him protection.
Oh, yeah.
Similarly, Nellie and Margaret, the wives, were also released and eventually escaped angry mobs with the help of police protection. And their fates are also unknown. We don't know, like, I mean, we assume that they got out of Edinburgh, but we don't know, like, how they lived out their lives. Dr. Knox continued practicing and refused to comment on the matter. He didn't admit any wrongdoing. The public pretty much crucified him, though. They essentially saw him as equally culpable. He eventually resigned from his position as curator of the College of Surgeons Museum. He left Edinburgh in 1842 for the mainland where he practiced, and he was eventually debarred from lecturing in 1848. And in 1856, he worked at the Brompton Cancer Center as a pathological anatomist until his death in 1862. So, for 16 people murdered by 4 people, only one of them faced justice for it. And that is the story of the Burke and Hare murders.
Wow. Well, if you want to see the pictures of his skeleton and some of the other things we talked about tonight, you can go check out our Facebook or Instagram at The Tales We Tell Podcast. If you want to see photos but don't do the social media, please check out our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. And as Hannah mentioned, our Redbubble store, there is a Black Friday sale going on. So if you want to get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, check out redbubble.com, search The Tales We Tell. And if you want to become a patron and support us without getting yourself stuff, because we've all got so much stuff, you can go to patreon.com, search The Tales We Tell. All patrons get early access, commercial-free listening, stickers, and love notes, and bonus content galore. Well, not quite galore, but it's there.
It's there. You get our undying love.
You want to hear a joke?
Oh, yes. I forgot about your joke.
I told this to Shelton. He's asked me to tell it to him again several times since.
Okay.
So one day, Mama Cow was chilling in the pasture with her calves, and her calf Sunbeam said, "Mom, why did you name me Sunbeam?" And Mama Cow said, "Well, when you were born, a ray of light landed on your head, and so I named you Sunbeam." And so her calf Butterfly says, "Well, Mama, why did you name me Butterfly?" And Mama says, "Well, when you were born, a butterfly landed on your head, so I named you Butterfly." And the third calf, Cinderblock, said, "Herd it, herd it, herd it, herd it."